I scaled my coaching business to over $50,000 a month. And today we're going to be reviewing a coaching business that does over $1 million every single month. So we're going to be reviewing Bryan Johnson's funnel, offer, brand, his entire business model, and a little bit about his backstory. So we're going to give you a lot. I'm going to give you a lot of value and hopefully key bits of information that you can use to apply to your business to help you get to the next level. So this is an educational video. If you're watching this with me right now and you're trying to learn something, take your phone, put it on Do Not Disturb, get it out of sight, get it out of mind, get a pen and paper out, and I'm going to be walking you guys through a lot of very useful pieces of information that are going to help you scale your business. So let's jump into it right now. A lot of you guys who are like fitness coaches or people who have coaching businesses, you see these really big guys in the space and you're like, oh yeah, it's really difficult to make, $1 million a month, or you can't make $1 million a month in coaching, right? It's like you can easily make $1 million a month in coaching. You just have to be positioned correctly. And this is an example of one of those guys. Okay. So we're going to jump into the video. I'm going to pretty much break down his coaching offer, his backstory a little bit, and just kind of how his business model works that is able to make him this much money, okay? Because he does make his content, everything he does is a business. It's not just for shits and giggles, okay? So let's jump into it. So this is Bryan, okay? Obviously, you've heard him or seen him on his mission to not die, whether it's swapping blood with his son, downing piles of supplements and pills, or tracking every possible metric of his body. But what most people miss is that behind the bizarre reptilian routines is that he's quietly running $10 million a year business from it. And this is projections that I've analyzed him to roughly be at. He could be a little bit higher, maybe like plus or minus 10 million. So yeah. Okay. So how did Bryan get rich? So pretty much Bryan's backstory is the following. So pretty much at 19, Bryan went to Ecuador, where he spent 2 years immersed in poverty. Okay, so as you can see here, after living in Ecuador for 2 years amongst extreme poverty at the age of 21, I came back to the US and decided I would devote my life to making the largest and most meaningful impact on humanity as possible. When he returned to the US, the contrast of wealth hit hard and made him realize he wanted to devote his life to making the most meaningful impact. Okay, but however, in order to do that, he'd need a lot of capital. Okay, lots of it. Okay, so he set a mission for himself: become an entrepreneur, amass enough wealth to never worry about working again, and then dedicate his life fully to his greater ambitions for humanity. Okay, so this kind of brings me onto a side tangent. A lot of you guys want to do similar things. You want to give money away to charity or help other people, or let's say you're a person of faith and you want to help build churches. I don't even know. Okay, you want to bring more people to your faith, or you want more people to be healthy. Okay, that's great, but all of these goals require capital. Everything that you want to do on a big scale where it's helping people, they require a lot of capital. So you do have to help yourself before you help others. And Bryan nailed this here with having this recollection. Okay, so after a few failed startups, he went on to launch his first majorly successful payment company, Braintree, in 2017. Okay, by 2011, Braintree was ranked 47th on the Forbes list of the 500 fastest growing companies, and eventually he acquired Venmo in 2012 for $26 million. Okay, I think that's incorrect. 2017. I think that should have been 2010. Okay. Braintree was ranked the 47th, and he acquired Venmo in 2012 for $26 million. In 2013, PayPal acquired Braintree for $800 million, with Johnson walking away with over 300. Okay, so big payout, and this is also an upside. If you are running a business where there's no key man risk, you can do stuff like this. So in his words, the objective was, I want to earn enough money so that I can dedicate my attention to doing something that could potentially be useful on a society-wide scale. And more importantly, something that would be considered to be valuable from the vantage point of 2050, 2100, 2500, etc. Okay, so he had to make that sacrifice of starting his business, dedicating years to growing something, to do something that he actually wanted to do. In 2014, 1 year later, he took his money from Braintree and invested $100 million into a venture capital fund called the OS Fund, and 54 million into a neurotechnology startup called Kernel. By this point, he's built several multi-million-dollar companies, but at the cost of his own health. Okay, I know he talks about this. He probably, if you follow him for a while, he talks about his backstory of how he was sacrificing his health and to build his companies, and he was working, overeating. He had kids. He got into this rut of unhealthy habits, etc. Okay, and then after selling his company to Braintree for Venmo for 800 million, he traveled back in time to my 1-year-old dreams of doing something impactful for the human race. I wondered if we may be able to be the first generation to not die. I put a team of 30 medical professionals together, built the world's best health protocol, and I became the most biologically measured person in history. And the rest is history. Okay? So in 2021, taking the money he earned from previous startups, he launched this Project Blueprint, which is pretty much a lifespan extension protocol. So I want you to just compare this offer, for example. Let's say you're a fitness coach that helps, middle-aged men lose weight. Compare this offer to an offer like yours. Okay, and I don't mean this in a rude way, to talk about your business, but compare an offer where it's a lifespan expansion protocol. Okay, just those 3 words, lifespan expansion protocol, compared to, lose weight, and if you're a corporate executive male and you want to lose weight, okay? There is something to be said about an offer being unique, and if your offer is unique, then a lot of marketing will take care of itself, okay? So pretty much he launched this lifespan expansion protocol and talked about the various methods through content on how to actually go about living longer, okay? Not only is he attempting to reverse aging, but his goal is to even defeat death. And the thing about Bryan is if you study any great uprising or any great revolution, there's always something that people are going towards and something people are going against. Bryan has this very clear, where aging bad, being young and slowing aging good. Okay? That's his mission. He has multiple mechanisms to achieve that mission. But every single piece of content, everything that he does, every mechanism that he talks about is talking about going towards X and going away from Y. Okay? So you have to be for something and against something at the same time for maximum efficiency. So pretty much, however, the process definitely isn't cheap or simple. Okay, spending over $2 million yearly on his own personal routine. This is just what he says he does or did. $2 million yearly, maximizing the basics: sleep, eating, exercising, plus highly experimental and expensive interventions with supplements, gene therapy, plasma stuff. This is just what he says. You have to remember, he could be lying. He also is trying to make money. Because of his strict and unusual experiments, he quickly gained attention online, and Johnson started building his personal brand around his objective, don't die. With his blueprint, he was able to monetize a large portion of the attention. He's getting into a monthly recurring membership to follow his routine. However, most people obviously don't have a spare $2 million a year to spend on their health. Instead of selling the complete and complex regimen he follows, he created and sells a lineup of supplement, oils, things, etc., which makes it more accessible while still keeping it aligned with the same overall mission. Okay, so he's like, oh yeah, well, I researched millions of supplements and I tried all of these and I tested my biomarkers with every single one of these supplements, and these are the most essential ones that you're going to need. You're going to need the olive oil, you're going to need the longevity thing, you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And you could buy them now on a monthly basis for $565 a month for supplements. Kind of expensive, kind of crazy, but fair enough. Okay? So looking kind of at his business model, he, in his content, is constantly using all of these different things. So, for example, in a lot of his content, he's like, you have to have this specific sort of extra virgin olive oil because whatever. So he is talking also about the mechanism in a lot of his top of funnel stuff that is getting people interested in, you know, he's foreshadowing this, okay, this kind of offer, okay? So the exact number of active subscribers isn't public, but here's what we do know, okay? Number one, he has a Discord called Don't Die Army that has over 14,000 members. There have been 200 plus in-person events in 75 countries in the past year. And the Blueprint subreddit has over 35,000 members. He also has 1.9 million followers on Instagram. So for a low end estimate, if 10% of the Discord, okay, this is middle of funnel, which is Discord. Low end of Discord, 14,000 paying subscribers, which is 700 people at $565 a month. That is $800,000 per month. And that's taking the low end. We also have to take into account he does have 1.9 million followers on Instagram. Okay. And this is the great thing about this is monthly recurring. Okay. A lot of people, I've worked with supplement brands before, they focus on one-off offers. They focus on just getting one payment and pushing ads to that. But if you're running ads to a checkout page, you're going to break even from the initial money you're spending on ads from that initial sale. Okay. There has to be upsells. There has to be some sort of continuity involved there if you want to just off the jump increase lifetime value and increase lifetime value by like 20-25%. Okay. So he's doing roughly, let's say, $800 to $1 million a month. But the reason why he's able to bring in low to mid 8 figures every year isn't actually because of the products themselves. What you have to realize is that the most profitable businesses aren't winning because they sell the best products. They win because they sell the brand. And this is the thing. These supplements are probably not amazing. Like they're probably very accessible that people can get for a lot less than $565. Okay. It's the brand that's selling people. Okay. They see his content. They understand that he's an authority figure and that he's gone through and done all of this testing. And then they're like, okay, well, why would I go and buy all these supplements separately or try to figure this out on my own when I could just go to you? You've already spent $2 million a year for a couple of years and you've already made this transformation. Okay. And then I'm just going to go and use what you have for only $565. That seems like a steal due to the fact that you have like a red light machine, Bryan, that's worth like $5 million. Like, you know what I mean? So same thing with, for example, Nike. Okay, they're not printing $141 million a day because they have the highest quality products. Okay, thousands of factories and businesses could compete to have the best products, but the real challenge is going up against their brand. Okay, as people aren't actually buying products, they're buying into what the product represents. So you don't stand out by having the best product, you stand out by having the strongest brand and therefore the strongest message that people actually want to get behind. Same thing with Apple. Okay, and then relating this back to Bryan, people aren't buying olive oil or supplements, they're buying into his mission, don't die. Okay, they're buying into his credibility. Blueprint is just a vehicle to pretty much get them there. So the key is that when people believe in the mission, the product becomes secondary. And surprisingly, practically every majorly successful brand uses the same winning formula. Okay, you have your mission, you have your brand and vehicle to represent that mission, and then the products to pretty much achieve the mission. Okay, to mechanize the mission. A product is just a mechanism of the mission. Okay? And it's very interesting that if you can get clear on all of these, then you know exactly what you need to do in terms of making content, in terms of generating attraction. You're just talking about the mission, and that's pretty much it. And subsets of the mission. Okay? And with Bryan, there is kind of a novelty factor because a lot of people maybe see his content and they're like, okay, this is kind of crazy, and then they buy into it a little bit, and then they're starting to get interested about the different protocols because it's so bloody different. And this is another big point as well. A lot of fitness coaches or a lot of people selling info or etc., they're selling it the same as everyone else, and you're not going to have a massively successful brand like Bryan if you're not willing to go to that extent where you're trying to do something drastically different. because there's so many clones of everyone trying to do the exact same stuff. You have to be different. And I know it sounds cliche, but you simply do. Okay? If everyone is doing X and getting Y, you're not going to come in and do X and get Z. It doesn't happen. So what Bryan nailed from the start is positioning himself around the mission and the end goal, not the products themselves. Okay, he wanted to have a meaningful impact on humanity, ran companies, got unhealthy, and used the money from his companies to fund his initiative to fix his health. So how does this apply to you? As a coach, you don't need to build the absolute best coaching program, meal plans, training app, etc. Instead, you want to focus your effort into building a mission and vision that people can get behind. For example, Bryan Johnson's Don't Die, Paul Saladino, his animal-based carnivore stuff, V-Shred, where he talks about keto, Jeff Nippard, and science-based lifting. Each of these guys have their own mission, their own unique mechanism behind their brand that people can latch onto, okay, that people can get behind and say, oh yeah, I'm a science-based lifter, or oh yeah, I do keto, or I'm an animal-based guy. Okay, I have my cutting board with my animal-based stuff. I drink raw milk, okay? So you don't remember them for their product, you remember them for their mission and mechanism. So instead of obsessing over having the perfect product, obsess over the mission you're selling and make your product the clear vehicle to get people there. Whatever your mechanism is, hormone regulation, carnivore diet, or anything else, you need to double down and become the face of it. Just like when you think science-based lifting, you think Jeff Nippard, when people hear the mechanism you use, they should instantly think of you and your brand. Okay? So becoming the face of your mechanism is to, number one, define your brand's purpose and core mechanism. So, example, hormone regulation. Because if your hormones aren't in check, long-term fat loss is impossible. Okay? So that would be the brand's purpose or the main thing that it's solving for. Okay? Number two, define your audience and market. Don't try to talk to everyone. Pick a specific niche and solve their exact pain points using your mechanism. Short, high-impact workouts designed for busy salesmen with packed calendars. Okay? So you have your problem, and you're finding who experiences that problem the most, or you'd like to work with, or has the most money that experiences that problem, and then you're going in, finding those people. Number three, set a clear statement. So make your mechanism simple and unforgettable. Give it a name. Very simple. Things that have names are just easier to recognize. Okay? And then once you do this, you can start to pretty much make yourself the face of this brand. Okay? Just like Alex Hormozi with $100 million, $100 million offer, leads, whatever. Okay? Money Models is the new one. Okay? He got behind that. So you want to pretty much find your mechanism and be unique around that. If you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, you're going to get the exact same results. Talk about your mechanism, talk about why you're different, and the more you harp on that mechanism and talk about that mechanism, and the more different that mechanism is, the more influential you'll pretty much be. So by doing exactly Bryan Johnson is pulling in millions from the single product line. While I can't guarantee you'll do the same, I can definitely say it'll get you a lot closer. Okay, with a net worth of over $400 million. Okay, so if you got some value today, if you found this to be interesting to understand, what Bryan kind of did, where he, got unhealthy, he was building his companies and launched this offer, then please leave a thumbs up. I really appreciate the support. What Bryan pretty much does is his brand is so big right now where he doesn't really need to, for example, have a perfect funnel because his brand is so influential. You kind of are able to defy the laws of physics if your brand is so good. So, for example, he's just simply running organic content to a Discord. He has some in-person events that he offers to the Discord. He has the subreddit. And in each of these, all CTAs to this one thing right here. Okay? And that's it. So I'm sure you can get a hold of him on a more personal level for one-to-one coaching, which he probably definitely does offer. But he probably does do like 50 to 100K a month from one-to-one coaching of people just inbound reaching out to him. I would suspect that. So yeah, that's the funnel. That's the offer. Hope this makes sense and you got value.